Sometimes it feels like the sun will never rise, like the birds will never sing again. Believing a power greater than what you are going through. When you don't know what to do, keep breathing.
That's right. When you don't know what to do, just keep on breathing. From the City of Angels in Los Angeles, welcome to all my listeners out there in Radio Land. I'm Dave, the Caregiver's Caregiver at caregiverdave.com. Also coming to you live and on demand 24/7 on numerous syndicated radio and podcast networks on 26 global audio and video platforms, including iHeartRadio, iTunes, YouTube, Spreaker, SoundCloud, Vimeo, Stitcher Radio, and the list goes on and on. In fact, we are proud to be voted #1 caregiver podcast of the top 50 on Player FM, and #2 caregiver podcast on FeedSpot out of the top 60, and #2 on caringvillage.com. And today we have an exciting show for you, don't we, Carletta?
Yes, we do.
See, she said it. It must be true. Lyle Benjamin is an author, educator, financial advisor, and social responsibility entrepreneur. He's the past publisher of the newsstand magazine Relationships Today, and the founder of 3 nonprofit organizations dedicated to providing collaborative solutions to solving global issues that threaten quality of life for kids, people, and the planet. Sounds like an important job, Kyle. But before we get started, I want to take this moment to thank my last week's guest. Mika Rosanis is the head of clinical development at Sensei, or as she says it, Sensei AI. And Mika brings years of field experience as an OT, occupational therapist, in older adult care and rehabilitation to guide Sensei's research and development and to go-to-market strategy, driven by her passion to merge the worlds of care and technology. And just a reminder, you can watch or listen to that interview and all our interviews on our 26 global networks I mentioned earlier. All right, enough of that. Welcome to the show, Lyle.
Thank you so much.
So excited to have you on. And I'd like to ask my guests the first question, just who is Lyle Benjamin and why was he placed on this earth?
Well, let's see. We have to go directly to God for that one, but I'll do my best. As you mentioned before, that I'm the founder of 3 nonprofit organizations, and I didn't start out wanting really to save the world. I just wanted to repay a debt. Because when I was growing up, I had a real difficult childhood. And I started working when I was 11 years old in New York City just to get out of the house. Wow. And I met people who took an interest in me when they didn't have to. And it really helped me tremendously. And I knew I couldn't repay them directly. So I wanted to do something with my life in order to express my gratitude. So I went to law school. And then I found out after I got there that I was very naive. Profession wasn't about helping people. And, after being offered a job by the Attorney General's office in the Litigation Bureau in Albany, working on memorandums on public health and other issues, I decided the profession wasn't for me. So I went into other things in order to help people. And, are you
able to use your law degree that you spent so much to get?
Yeah, actually I do. And I do it to help people, off the books, so to speak.
Wow, a compassionate lawyer. Imagine that. I think you're the first one I met. Well, I'm sure there was another one somewhere. I don't know.
I appreciate that. So, the thing is that I'm working to go ahead and really improve people's quality of life. And what I found is that we as a country, we as a world are using a fractional approach to do this, whether it's by individuals, influencers, or institutions, and it simply doesn't work. So we've got to go ahead and have collaborative systems that work together to push back on everything from the tipping point issues to the inequalities that we all face in life, whether they're economic, social, and what we're talking about today is health. And, until we go ahead and do this, we're not going to go ahead and succeed. So the window of opportunity is really closing on these problems. In the next 3, 5, 7 years, it's going to get tremendously worse for billions of people unless we come together. And that's the basis of the book that you see behind me, which is the one book, The Fight for Survival of the Human Race, where we have over 40 different collaborative programs for individuals, influencers, and institutions to go ahead and push back on all these issues.
Now, as you know, my audience are burned out caregivers, and they have gotten that way because they care a lot about their loved ones, so much so that they neglect their own health, their own welfare, etc. And so when we had first spoken, you were talking about how you can talk about long-term care insurance and how that would ensure that these people would have quality care. So what is the hope if they don't have long-term care yet and it's too late? You know, they're already suffered that stroke, they already have Parkinson's or whatever. But I guess it's a lesson to the caregiver who may still be younger and still be perhaps in decent health, that they don't want their kids to go through what they're going through. So how old do you have to be before long-term care is affordable? Carletta, do you have long-term care insurance?
Yeah,
Yes,
the thing is,
yeah,
that's great. That's absolutely great.
I've had it for 10 years.
I've had it for about the same amount, maybe when I was 48 or so.
Do you have it as standalone policies, or is it bundled into something else?
No, I don't like bundles. Mine is just a pure policy, and I even instead of getting the inflation rider, I says just give me the maximum amount that they can get, because who knows what inflation's going to do, and so mine I think covers $400,000 life, over the policy.
Right.
So you get a pretty decent thing, assuming I live another 3.5 years, which I would go through that.
Well, the thing is that, in my own personal family, my grandmother needed long-term care, and the way that she got it was by going bankrupt. In other words, this is
Tell us about that.
Well, most people find themselves in a situation where they can't afford it, so they pay down their bank accounts. If they've got equity in a house, they got to sell their property and use it for their health care. My neighbor across the street in Queens, where I was living, his children sold his house for $150,000 below value just because they needed it immediately for his health care.
See, what they should have done is done a reverse mortgage on it, pulled the money out, and then they'd still have the house.
Well,
you agree, Carlene?
There's things in real estate that aren't always, available right away or fraught with other issues. But, that's something that a lot of people experience, because the cost of long-term care today is over $300,000 per person. And the thing is, 7 out of 10 of us during our lifetime are going to need it. And that's what people don't understand. And it's not covered by your health insurance.
No, not at all.
So
and the thing about it is, if you don't get it now while you're young, your ailments, once you've been diagnosed with one thing, you can be healthy as a horse 1 week, and then the next week they diagnose you with something, and you could have had it the whole time, but you didn't know. But you go to the doctor and find out that you have it, and now they've diagnosed you with it. Yeah. Now you can't get the long-term care. Like, this is why you need to make sure that you're getting it while you're young enough to be able to, invest into yourself.
And I was 49, and, I was frugal, but they told me it would only be $110 a month for, whenever. And they won't just raise me, they would raise a group. And so for 10 years, they never raised it. And then just recently, they raised it 15%. So now it's like $135, which is still very, very affordable.
Right.
Right.
Well, the other situation is what you all have done. That's what my mother has done. She has 2 long-term policies that she's had literally for 40 years. And now she needs them. But the thing is, both providers have her go through so many hoops, right? That, it's so time consuming to go ahead and to do their paperwork, to go ahead and qualify, to get reimbursed. Okay. And they reject claims. They, one policy is very, very strict and has rejected certain things that, she needs it for. Another, which pays a less amount, unfortunately, right, has a little bit more liberal policies. And it's taken up a tremendous amount of time just to go ahead and get her qualified for the opportunity for reimbursement. And, as a financial advisor, the reason why I got into it in the first place was because a little different reason, but I think important to your viewers as well. When we go ahead and make money in this country, there are basically a couple of things that we do with it. If we're, let's say, entrepreneurial, or we've made a significant amount of money, we put it into real estate, we put it into the stock market. And for people who are working in jobs who have 401ks, 403bs, 457 plans, that's where their money goes, into the stock market. But the problem with the stock market is that all you have is the opportunity for growth. There's no safety, there's no protections, and contrary to what you're told, there's no tax advantages also. Because when you need the money the most in your retirement, that's when the government's going to tax it. So if you think you're getting $30,000 a year, okay, you might only be getting $15,000. Okay, so the thing is that I put money into real estate, and it was always a pain in my, and I put money into the stock market. And you don't earn money in the stock market. You either win it or you lose it. It's a gamble. Okay. We don't control the market no matter what we do. So the thing is, I won money and I lost money, but it turned out I lost over 6 figures in the market.
Wow.
And
join the club.
Yeah, really. Exactly. Most of us have, right?
Okay, for your long-term care 5 times over.
Well, yeah, well,
because it's an investment, isn't it? People don't think of that as an investment, just like their 401k.
Right. But the thing is that with your 401k, you don't get that opportunity to put it into a long-term care program. So the thing is that, what I did was I started to investigate why we don't have the education that we need about how money really works. So we go to school for 12, 16, 18, 20, 24 years, right? I have internship mentorship programs with a lot of the colleges around the country, from NYU to Columbia we've been approved by Harvard, MIT, University of Pennsylvania. We get their finance, economic, business majors, and all they learn is the Wall Street way that money works. And Wall Street doesn't work for 95% of the population. Wall Street works for Wall Street. So that's where your money's going, into your 401k, 403b. And the thing is that what I learned and what I researched and what I uncovered was that there are other plans available through the IRC code that the rich set up for themselves that have much greater benefits. It's like healthcare. You know who has the best healthcare program in the world?
Politicians.
Absolutely. 100%. You serve one day in Congress and you're set for life. You've got the best healthcare program in the world. So the thing is, they set up the tax code the same way. And there are programs there where all the money that you put in is 100% protected against market loss. So you can't lose principal. 2, any principal that you make on an annual basis, okay, any interest that you make, any growth that you have, gets converted to principal. And you can't lose principal. This is what Warren Buffett said. Hey, right, the number 1 rule of investing, don't lose money. The number 2 rule, follow the number 1 rule. Okay? So the number 3 is protection. It's not only asset protection. If anything happens to you, right? Your family still has their mortgage, still has their college kid, education for their kids, right? Their cars, so you get a lump sum. It's a hybrid between investment and insurance, but you can add long-term care protection. So the thing is, what we do as financial advisors in my nonprofit and what we set up for companies and organizations, regardless of how small they are, they can be individuals, they can be solo entrepreneurs, they can be, small companies that can't afford to go into the big plans like the 401ks, right? We go ahead and we provide people, ordinary people, with the opportunity to get that safety, that growth, that protection, including long-term care, up to the maximum that HIPAA allows, which is $10,000 a month. And the way you qualify is simply a letter from your doctor that says you cannot do any of the 2 daily assisted living activities out of the 6.
And what are those 2?
Any ones that you qualify for. In other words, you can't bathe, you can't toilet, you can't, you can't feed yourself. So any of those things, but
that would kick in the long-term care policy.
That would kick in the long-term care policy, and you don't need receipts. It's not a reimbursement policy. Okay. And you can use the money for your caregiver. You can use it for your mortgage, your rent. If you want to go to Florida because you want extra sunshine, because you're
Acapulco
because you're vitamin K deficient, use it and then take your caregiver with you.
Wow, you're making me feel really glad that I bought this policy. I forgot all the great reasons I paid. Got anything to say, Carletta?
So what if just say a client, if they become disabled temporarily and they use up, so they have a $400,000 policy and they use up $150,000 of the policy, and now they're able to go back to work.
That's fine.
So
Good question.
what is left with the policy? Is it the remainder?
It's the remainder. But the thing is, remember, yes, but remember, in the policies that what we put people into, there's also growth. So the thing is that you can still be growing that amount over time.
You're talking about buying a whole life policy that
absolutely not. Absolutely not a whole life policy, Dave. Right?
How does it work?
It works where it's a hybrid between life and long-term care and investment. But it's not whole life. Whole life is a horrible, excuse me for saying this, it's a horrible investment, because you're going to pay on it your whole life. And that's not
produces substandard returns.
Correct. And when you pull it out, you're loaning the money to yourself at a high rate. In the policies we put people into and the plans that we put people into, you can pull the money out. You don't have to repay it. And even when the stock market loses money, you don't. And
so it's an insurance product?
Money. It's an insurance product with an investment.
And what name did they give this insurance product with investment?
It's called it's under the IRC code 7702.
Is that what they call it?
Yeah, just like your 401k is under the 401k section. So it's a 7702.
So they didn't come up with a clever name to call it.
Well, they have different names. It's Index Universal Life. It's Variable Universal Life. There's different things. Different companies have it, but if you go to those companies, and they're very well-known billion-dollar companies, and the way that we do it as financial advisors is we don't charge people to go ahead and educate. We don't charge people for financial needs analysis to go ahead and determine what the best custom program is for them. We're not locked into one provider. We can go to any provider that we want to get the best program for that individual. So you can be a family and a spouse could have one program, right? The other spouse could have a different program. The children could have a different program.
So let's talk theoretical now, comparing apples to apples. Let's say it's me back when I was 49. Let's say this thing was available at that time, and I'm paying, like I told you, $110 a month. How much more would this policy be that would have you said it was life insurance too, so it'll be a little more because it's okay. So I have a life insurance, so you combine them together. So let's say I'm paying for $1 million policy. I'm paying like $400 a month. Okay, and that I'm 68 now, so that's why it's. I think it was a 30-year term. And that's another question I need to ask. What do you do when your 30 years are up and you're still healthy?
Well, that's a term policy, because then you're kind of screwed, because what's going to happen is
they will continue to insure you, but you should see how the rate goes up.
Oh, it goes up
astronomically. Yeah.
It goes up tremendously, and that's what they're counting on, because 99% of the people who take out term, right, don't ever use it. Right. They're kind of happy that they didn't use it because they didn't die. But then again, the insurance company's even happier because, right, they made all that cash. They made all that cash for the 10, 20, 30 years that you had the policy.
Okay. So my two questions. Number one is, how much more would it cost? Would it be, it's kind of like going round trip or one way. Which way is cheaper, on a flight?
Well, the answer to the question is everything varies on an individual basis, right? And it's all custom. So I couldn't go ahead and
just
answer
ballpark, we're just saying.
The answer is on a generic basis, by combining them both, it's actually going to go ahead and make you money. Okay, because what's going to happen,
and you'll be paying the same rate for insurance, life insurance, that I was paying before, and theoretically the same rate. So are you saying theoretically, all things being equal, you can pay the same amount for your life insurance, same amount for your long-term care, put them together, and now they'll make money for you? Is that too simplistic?
Yes. No, that's not too simplistic, but also it might save you money as well.
Okay.
Because the thing is that the programs that we're going to put people in are much better than whole life programs. And you don't have to pay your whole life. And you can pay variable depending on what's going on in your life. And you can use it as a savings account for your investments where you never lose money.
And what's the ideal age that someone should think of some of this?
If you have children, you do it when they're 0, basically, because you can put in $2,000 a month, $2,000 a year, into their policies. Okay. And by the time that they're ready to start college, you'll have put in $36,000, which is what you might have contributed to 1 year of college. And over their lifetime, they'll be able to pull money out for for their college expenses, for a down payment on a home. And when they go ahead and keep that going, where any interest in any amount that they earn is reapportioned into their principal, that's compounding. That's what you don't get with your 401k. So the thing is, Albert Einstein, kind of a smart guy, said the 8th wonder of the world is compound interest. Compound interest, right? And that's what these programs get, where your whole life doesn't get that. So the thing is that, let's take a scenario where you have $1 million face value on your plan. Well, the thing is, that doesn't have to go to your beneficiaries. You can use that as a living plan that supplements your retirement, and
kind of like that reverse mortgage home.
Yeah, but you can pull money out of that and use it for whatever you want.
Is it a loan?
No, it's a loan, but you don't have to repay it, and because it is a loan, you don't have to go ahead and pay taxes on it, on your income as well.
You don't have to repay it. You can die owing it.
You can die owing it because it comes out of the equity that you have in the plan.
Oh, yeah. So if whatever you borrow against, you're paying into it monthly anyway. So you're just rebuilding your policy, basically.
Yes, but you can stop. There are also times in your life when you can stop and you have enough equity built up, because remember, this is a hybrid. It also has the investment component in it. And, I've done analysis over, a 15, 20-year period where this thing beats the pants off of like the S&P, because when the S&P loses money, you lose both your principal and your gains. And if you lose 50%, right, then you've got to have your money double just to break even. And you know that it's very hard for stocks to double. So in these plans that we put people in, there's always a guaranteed floor. So you're never losing money.
Sounds
And,
great. Sounds great.
Well, that's
Now,
why the rich use them.
what about my other question is, what about us guys who maybe in 4 years we're going to run out of life insurance? Any hope for us, or that's it?
Sure. No, there are plans that you can still go ahead and get into.
In your 70s?
In your 70s, yes. It's not like an IRA or anything like that. So you still can get into it, right? Obviously, right, the closer you are to your mortality, the more expensive it can become. But there are ways to go ahead where you can contribute less on the insurance side, and you can still have the investment side. You can still qualify for the long-term care side as well.
And the obvious answer, if you do come down with something like cancer or what have you, then you should pay those astronomical rates because you'll still come out ahead.
Well, yeah, I mean,
assuming
they're not astronomical rates. They're not going to be the astronomical rates. Whereas if you go into a standalone long-term care policy when you're older, it is going to cost you. So instead of just going ahead and paying out on that.
Well, assuming you have both, though.
Okay. But a lot of people don't, as we know.
Okay.
Like a lot of your audience doesn't. So the thing is, instead of going and just getting a standalone policy, and then, I'm sorry,
you pay the astronomical rates on the long-term care.
Well, no, you should put it into a hybrid where you're getting the benefits of everything.
Which is what you're talking about.
Which is the safety, the growth, the protection.
And some life insurance.
Right. Because the thing is, otherwise, let's say you have a great life. Let's say you don't need the long-term care. Mm-hmm. Well, you spent, 10, 20, 30 years paying these astronomical rates to a company which is never going to give you any service or benefit from it. Whereas in the policies that we have, that part is growing your investment still. So when you take it out, you get to use it for whatever you want to use it for, or you can attribute it to your long-term care.
And so the principal is guaranteed in that investment?
Yes, it's 100% guaranteed. And it has better guarantees.
But the return is not guaranteed.
The return is not guaranteed. It's tied into the market. So
is there a minimum return, or just what is the minimum?
The minimum is either zero, where you're not minimum money. It's called a guaranteed floor, or some companies give 0.25%, 0.5%, 1-2%,
like your savings account,
like your savings account, which has gone up recently. Okay, because of inflation.
Well, we've run out of time, but what's the last thing that you would like to say, and then tell us how we can get a hold of you?
Well, let's see. The last thing is that, we all have difficult lives. And, when we're younger, a lot of times we think, when we get older, it's going to be easier. When we get older, we realize that there are more things that are going to come our way that are going to make life difficult. And the thing is that we need support systems to help us through these difficult times. One of the greatest support systems we have are people in our lives that we have great relationships with and a stronger sense of community. That's what one of my other programs, that's based on kindness and civility, the Karma Club is based on. And the thing is that there are lots of ways where you can go ahead and be the caregiver, which is, sometimes exhausting, sometimes rewarding, but there are things that you can do to take care of yourself. And in our programs, we have a whole myriad of these things. We just talked about one section today, which is, the long-term care aspect. But we have, one of the books I'm coming out with at the beginning of the year is called Legacy Lifelines Memoirs, where you and your loved one can go ahead and work together to create a memoir for that person's life that can become a keepsake for them, for your family, and for future generations. And it's a great way to keep the joy and happiness alive, and to make those connections where you didn't realize, that you might have had.
Wow.
So there's lots of different things that we have through my organizations, Planned Acts of Kindness and One Planet, One People. there's a QR code where you can scan that and get access to our app. A lot of our programs, actually, the vast majority of them are free because that's why we're here, to help people with quality of life. And another thing is, we encourage people to be the hero, to volunteer, no matter where you are in the world. There's things that you can do to go ahead and help others. And we'd love to go ahead and hear from you.
Wow. So you're much more than an insurance agent.
That's like, yeah. Yes.
Do you need a license to do what you do with the insurance? Do you need an insurance license to sell that?
I'm licensed in insurance and health.
So you got a lot of licenses.
Yeah. And the thing
you're
is
an investment advisor as well? Yeah.
The thing is that, I do this not as a job. I do it as, this is why I'm on the planet.
I give back.
Yeah.
Pay it forward.
Yes. And I believe in playing it forward. People shouldn't have to pay for kindness.
Now you look so young. How old are you?
I'm older than you. I'm 64 on Thanksgiving Day.
Well, thank you for the compliment. I'm 68 and almost 69 in January.
Oh, okay.
Wow.
But you look young.
I didn't see that coming. Thank you. And Carletta, she's 85, but look at how she looks. She's amazing.
Very well preserved. Very well preserved. You're doing something right, Carletta. Keep it up.
Oh, I made her laugh.
Thank you, gentlemen. You guys look great as well.
Well, thank you.
Keep up what you're doing.
Keeps us young, Dave.
All right, Kyle. So how do we get a hold of you?
You can get a hold of us through, my personal website, lylebenjamin.com or plannedax.org are the easiest ways, through the QR code, which is the app. We're available 7 days a week, 20 hours a day. And anything that you want to go ahead and share, any cause or program that you have that you want to introduce to us, what we do is we work on setting up collaborative systems.
Funny you should say that, Lyle, because we are working on sending caregivers to Acapulco for a respite to save their lives, because 30% of them die before their loved ones do. Carletta is already involved in getting caregivers to replace the caregivers so they can go and have a break on vacation. And I'm sending them to, Acapulco. And it costs about $4,000 to send a caregiver to Acapulco for 1 week. And that includes a 6-month coaching program. So it's a complete package to ensure that they stay alive, and that the ones that the lucky ones that don't die, the 30%, they will eventually either end up in a hospital and need a caregiver of their own. And there's about 10% of caregivers out there who are healthy and are doing the right things, like Carletta and I. But unfortunately, that means there's 90% who are not doing it right. So we don't know what else to do. We've got to physically remove them from their situation and send them on vacation.
Well, I have a lot of ideas about that. It can be great. It can be the subject of another show, and
absolutely
we can talk about that.
In the meantime, I'll send you what I got just so you can process it and be well equipped for our next conversation.
Absolutely, with more than love to, and anything that we can do to help the wonderful work that you're doing.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Kyle. You really are a good guy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. He's the nicest attorney that I've ever met, Carlotta.
No, I'm not an attorney. Thank you.
Oh, well, he's the nicest guy who ever went to law school that I ever met.
Right. I appreciate the distinction. Thank you.
God bless you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Take care.
Right, thank you.
Oh, let me just tell, I forgot to say goodbye to my audience, because if you're watching this, this show becomes a recorded podcast. And we just want to remind you to click the like or follow button at the top of the platform that you're watching this on, and that you can go to caregiverdave.com. Carletta is at the caregiversafeplace.com, and that's where you can find out more about us and what we do. So thank you again, and again, thank you for making us the #1 caregiver podcast on the network. Bye-bye.
Sometimes it feels Like the sun will never rise, like the birds will never